Hello, my friends. John LaRuffa here with another straight up solo. And in this episode, we're going to take a look at Mistborn, the deck building game. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, folks, and as usual, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. And if you have, I really do appreciate the support. Thank you very, very much. So I actually just finished playing a game where I was able to beat the solo mode, which is kind of surprising because it was my first game, but I want to give you this information even after just the first game because I think I got a pretty good feel of the way the game plays. Anyway, let's talk about what's going on here. This is a more standard deck builder than some of the other ones that just came out from John D. Clare. And so it feels like you're in familiar territory, okay? Now, there are some nuances here. So just like a standard normal type of deck builder, you're going to draw from a draw deck. You're going to have a hand of 5 cards. You're going to buy from an open market. You're going to use cards that have coins on there to generate money for you to buy. All the usual trappings, okay? And you're going to be playing cards for damage, and the damage will be associated with an icon like this, and you might be able to heal yourself with this kind of icon. And the whole goal of the solo game is to be able to defeat this guy before he defeats you or before you exhaust his deck, okay? And so he starts with 48 health. You start with 36, which you track on these dials. And again, I just finished. That's at 0. And he is going to be doing damage to you. He's going to be playing ally card, or well, his ally cards, his minion cards, and they're going to be slowing you down. But you also have to deal with these missions. There'll be 3 missions that are represented in these cards here. Let me just kind of show you up close. The mission will have a set of, I guess you'd say, like slots, okay? You start over here, and you start moving up this track. And as you cross over some of these areas, you're always the first player in the solo, so you'll get some kind of bonus as you go up. But when you go up, there's usually something permanent that is with you for the rest of the time, or maybe there's a one-time thing. But it allows you to complete the mission, get some bonuses, but most importantly, it will slow down his recovery mechanism, okay? And the way you go up on these missions is by playing cards that have this icon, let's see, right here, okay? So that scroll-looking icon is how you go up on the mission tracks, all right? Now, the way the game works is you are going to start out by increasing your training level 1 slot every time. And as you go up throughout the game, you're going to be able to do more and more things, okay? The most important thing you're going to be able to do is burn more metal tokens, which basically means play them. You have these metal tokens that you will play on associated cards to activate the cards to allow them to do stuff. In addition, when you play a card and burn that metal, some of these other things, like on your character sheet here, or on some allies you might have to play here, may also trigger. So for instance, on my turn, even if I don't have a card that requires steel, I could burn a steel by just putting it in my play area. And that would trigger this because it says, if you are burning steel, do 2 damage. And that's a level 1 ability that you'll get when your training marker comes across that spot right here. And this one is just an ally who has a certain amount of damage that they can soak up from you. And they will be dealt that way too when you're playing. Anyway, the same thing happens here where this says if you are burning steel, do 2 damage. So just by playing this, both of these will trigger. But then there are also cards like this one, for instance. This one needs pewter, okay? So if I play this card down, I have to burn a pewter to activate it. Or I could play a card that has this pewter symbol on the bottom here, and maybe even get a bonus for playing that card instead of burning that pewter to activate the card by tucking it under like that. Or I could do both. I could do this, and that would be pewter plus the pewter, which gives me both of those kinds of things. So these cards are multifunctional, and that's interesting. And they get stronger as you go, and some of them require a lot of extra help. But you could also, instead of doing that, you could play a second card if you wanted to under here, because some of them say +2 or +3 or things like that. So you may need to have that going on where you have a lot of focused metals specific to one type to be able to trigger your cards. You have a certain amount you can burn, and the more you cross over these little white marks that say +1, the more tokens you can use each turn. You can only ever use a token once, period. It will return to you at the end of the turn. It'll come back to your supply, but you can't use it twice in a round, no matter what. Now, unless there's another thing you could do, which is called flaring a metal, where you flip it over to its dark side. That doesn't count against the burning element. It basically allows you to use extra metals above and beyond your burn amount, but you then have to spend a card later by just discarding it to refresh that. Otherwise, you won't ever be able to use it again. You cannot flare a metal or use a burned metal that's already flared. And you're not allowed to flare it and burn it in the same turn. It's basically saying that you can use it once. You can recover it and then burn it. That's legitimate, okay? So those are kind of the intricacies of what these metals do and how they interact with the cards. So what this game is going to do is it's going to encourage you to try to unite your deck under one of these 4 types of resources, okay? Because the more you do that, the more the cards can trigger themselves, the more focused your deck will be, and the more effective it will be. Now, the other thing is, because you need to accomplish these missions to stop the healing machine for this guy, you're going to need to vary your deck. It's not like you can just focus all on the iron steel, which is the big damage dealers, right? Each of these flavors of decks will do things that will help you in different ways, right? So, for instance, I had a lot of cards in my hand that allowed healing that came in from the pewter and the tin side of things, okay? Those seem to have helped me get that done. Like this one, for instance. This was a really strong card. I could deal 6 damage and I could get 8 health back if I could somehow cobble together enough pewter to do that, right? And so you want to focus on what you're doing here than just getting more than just getting a bloated deck. The other thing that makes this game interesting is that after you get to the second spot here, you will be able to just buy a card for the cost, use its ability once, and then eliminate it. Well, why is that good? Well, because that allows you to get a card, use it right away that you don't have in your hand. Just like any other deck builder, normally when you buy a card, you got to put it in your discard, you got to wait until it comes back. Well, this allows you to use it right away. It also lets you get some of the offsuit, so to speak, cards and use them without putting them in your deck where you're going to draw them over and over and it's going to necessarily dilute your focus. And so that's an interesting mechanic that every player has. And by the way, there are 4 different, I think 4 or 6. I think it's just 4 different characters in the game to start with. Let me just make sure. Just because, yeah, 4 character cards to start with. So in the base game, you have 4 different ones, and they are different. They are different things they focus on. They're different things that they're standard powers. This one happened to be, steel, so it was more damage dealing. And that may have also gone into why I was able to win my first try. So let's just go through a turn, all right? So let's say I had this situation here as we started. Here's my 5 cards. So I could play these out for the coins, and then I could use, like I said, I got some tin and pewter. Well, probably the best thing to do here, if I wanted to spend some effort healing, I could play this down like this and burn a pewter metal to get 7 health back, plus this one over here is 8. So that would be 8. That would effectively put me right back almost to where I started. Not quite, but it's a huge way. You've got to do that to be able to recover. And so sometimes these card combos can really get you back on your feet. And then maybe I have this tin over here and I want to use the tin so I can gain 1 for every mission track you are the lowest on. Well, in this case, I'm already the highest on all of these. You're only the lowest if you are, I think, below this. Don't quote me on it, but there is a lowest and highest clarification. So this card isn't all that great, but at least it gives me 1, 2, 3. Then I could maybe buy a card out here that costs 3. So here, maybe I could get this ally. And I put this ally in my discard deck, and you immediately would refresh. And then my turn would basically be over, just like any other standard deck builder kind of feel, right? You play your cards, you activate them. In this case, you've got these burning metals and such and different things. But I could have also, by the way, I could have also burned this steel to get 4 attack just like that, okay? And that would have reduced him by 4. Or if he had a minion out, it may have delivered a blow to his minion, maybe knocked his minion away. All right, so when your turn's done, you draw back up to 5 cards, right? And these come back. If I had flared any metals, nothing would have changed. They would have stayed flared. I would have had to recover them later. So here I got a hand now. This one has some iron and steel, iron and steel. This is more of the tin and pewter. And this is kind of an oddball over here. I've got a zinc and brass, right? Because I kind of started putting those in my hand at the beginning and then kind of decided, to go a different direction. But what happens at the beginning, at the end of your turn after you've done that, you draw 1 card. And there are 2 types. There's the Edict card, and the Edict card will advance him on this dominance track where he will do damage to you, he will get stronger, he'll kill some of your minions, etc. And then there's some other things that happen. In this case, all players heal 2, but then here, the Lord Ruler heals 10 health for each uncompleted mission. So you really got to get rid of those missions. Otherwise, when you draw one of these cards, which make up half the deck, you're going to heal up to 30. So here I was only healing 10 before I was able to muster up enough damage at the very end through a bunch of different things to clobber them. And then they also will draw some of these, or he'll discard and replenish some of these, kind of cycling the deck. The other type of card here would be the minion. A bunch of edicts here. Like this is a minion card, and basically what this says is you have to hit it for 2 and then 3. You can't do, it's not 5 total. You have to do a discrete amount of damage of at least 2 and then a discrete amount of damage of at least 3. But you can blend them together. Once you do that, you'll defeat it. But if you can't at least get to 2 and then 3, you can't deal damage to this guy. And then it says at the end of your turn, you must kill one of your allies or take 4 damage. So they give you some kind of choices there. And so that's how this works. You're basically working against some of these minions that'll come up, these edict cards, which will refresh and usually do some serious damage to you, making him stronger as well. And a deck here, of which you could see I was able to get it done in roughly about half the time. As you go up, you get stronger and stronger here, and you start to click it. When you get to these areas, you get these one-time only use adium tokens, I think they're called. Anyway, these are like a special mystic metal or whatever that you can use. And if you use those, they're one-time use, but they're really, really strong. I had a card in here, for instance, that related to them right here. I was able to use this and get up 5 on the mission and then deal 2 health or 2 damage to him. Now, this was an expensive card, but I was able to get it from the Eliminate deck because of other effects. See, when you discard, you can sometimes buy cards from here depending on what you're doing. So you don't have to buy. Sometimes you can just get one. And I was able to gain one from here through a special card. So there's lots of different things that you can do. And there's more variety here than I'm letting on, because obviously you have these different suits. The different suits will definitely change the way you play. These missions will be a little bit different every time, but they're mostly climbing tracks and just getting bonuses. And then this deck is always the same, and you always deal with a dominance card that starts off pretty weak and then starts to really deal you some more damage and kill your allies and make him stronger, etc., etc. Okay? And if you go to the very end, you're kind of done. Each player takes 9. Additional dominance does 11 to each playing character. So you just get slaughtered. You really have to hurry up and get it done. So there it is. That's the mechanics. Every time you play, you're going to have a very slightly different starting hand of cards, because your character will have a different hand of 4 cards and then 6 coins. And the 4 are very slightly different, focusing on different metals. And then you're always going to have this whole market to you. And there's also this card right here, Confrontation. If you end up buying this card, you can win the game also by playing 4 atrium tokens on this card in 1 turn to win. So that means you'd have to be at the end of this or have saved up your atrium and be at the end of this and got enough of them so that you can play 4 of them to win. So let me tell you then what I think about it. So the solo game of Mistborn is a good game. It's good. The mechanics of the game are more interesting, honestly, than the solo mode per se. I'll say it that way. This is a good game. There's an interesting amount of understanding in how you can configure these cards, the way the cards naturally play off of one another to use those metals to activate them makes for a strategic and tighter experience than just I buy the most expensive cards and they'll all go together and they're fine, and that's how I do my deck builder. The ability to kind of limit what you put in your hand by doing the one-time only purchase of the card and use and then eliminate is also pretty interesting. One thing I didn't talk about is that you can actually convert your coin cards into these round or these special. I think they're called. I don't know. It's a weird name. It would make sense in the theme here, but basically 2-to-1 to a permanent coin. You can use the permanent coin on other boxing. That's what they're called, like boxing tokens. Anyway, these other tokens you can use and save up for more expensive cards because it is hard to get those cards of value 5 or 6 or whatever. And so you can slowly build up for the big cards. Again, it gives you more control over your deck than some of the other standard deck builders that I've played over the years, or different deck builders. That being said, I was a little underwhelmed that I beat the solo mode in the first try. And I beat him. I don't know if it's because I got lucky with the cards I put into my deck, if it's also because I had very powerful, like the damage dealing hero seemed pretty good, but also I had, right out of the gate, I was able to buy some good steel cards that coupled with that, they gave me some very potent attacks, and that definitely helped. Plus, you saw those pewter cards that helped me heal. And having that allowed me to be able to strike a solid punch. And then I was, of course, focused on doing the missions. And so it just seemed like I was able to put it together pretty efficiently. Now, I need more plays for sure, okay? I'm just doing this review after the first one, but I just wanted to be able to do it because I feel like I've seen an awful lot of the game, and I want to give you my first impressions instead of just waiting a lot longer. But I am a little concerned that the solo mode might get a little stale because you're basically going to be fighting the same enemy with the same deck of cards with the same victory conditions. And that leads me to think that I bet the multiplayer is probably a more enjoyable experience. I'm just going to bet. I'm not going to probably play this game multiplayer, but I bet it'll be more enjoyable because you'll have a little more variety. The things that you'll do will definitely depend on what your opponent's doing. You're going to be able to pit your strategy and what you're focusing on based on what they're doing. That might provide a little bit more than just like, hey, this is the way to do the solo. I get these types of cards, I focus on this, I do this, and then do this, boom, I figured it out. And I feel like that's possible with this game. And so that is my one negative to it, is that as it stands right now, it seems like the solo mode is a little bit limited. However, it's still a very fun system. It's still a very cool game. It's still a very cool deck builder. I like the ideas that went into this one. They're good. It feels fun. It feels really cool to build focused decks that can really make for some strong combos in the way you play the cards. That's all cool. And I like that. But I just wonder, unless they have something in the future where they have like a boss pack or something else, they include some other things, I don't know how often you'll be busting it out to play it solo. Now, of course, there are 4 different characters, so you try a different character. It's absolutely going to change the way it feels because I relied heavily on the 2 damage that was coming from my character card every time I burn steel, and I burn steel every single turn. And so there's probably other ways to look at that. So I'll just put a little asterisk on there, being full disclosure here, that there might be more there. And I have heard people have tougher times winning, 2 for 2, 1 for 3, etc. I've read people's reviews and such. And I also went through the rules heavily, again, to make sure I wasn't making any mistakes. Because that would be, but usually I don't win a solo game on my first try. And so that was the thing that gave me pause. So anyway, take that for what it's worth. If you don't have a lot of deck builders and you're looking for a cool thematic one, especially if you know the series content, which I don't, it might be very rewarding there. there is some interesting stuff here. It's a very flexible deck builder from a standpoint of kind of things you can do and try, and the fact that you get a solo, a co-op, and a versus mode all in one, very good. Very good. I got a lot of positives to say about that. But I just don't know how much longevity we'll have. Not that I'm in a rush to part with it by any means. There's definitely going to be, 10 plays in there for sure, at least of me. But I can see that after that, I might play it out. So that's what I'm saying. That's what I feel about it. I hope this was helpful for you as usual. And as I always say, whatever you do in the future, I really do hope you have a fantastic time doing it. So take it easy, everybody, and have a good one.